What is up, guys? Rick Kakas here, and today we've got some brand spanking new information courtesy of the Bungie weekly update that has just been released. We've actually got a lot of changes, and a lot of changes coming soon. We're looking at Masterwork Armor being introduced, we're looking at the next Iron Banner, we're actually looking at how Raid rewards are being completely reworked, and some new loot coming to raids as well. So let's get started. Now, all of these changes are going to be happening on January 30th with the next big patch. And little tidbit of information, on January 30th, Destiny 2 will be down for maintenance from 8 a.m. Pacific to 12 p.m. Pacific to add this new update. So if you're planning on playing on the 30th, make sure to schedule around that time. So we are going to talk about all of the changes and features being added during that maintenance, and then spend some time talking about if those changes are enough, if they will really help Destiny 2 out. And so, let's start here at the top with Iron Banner. That's right, the first Iron Banner of 2018 is arriving Tuesday, January 30th, and it ends Tuesday, February 6th. The game type is Control. Now, Lord Saladin is going to be appearing for the first time in Season 2, and actually, this is what he is going to look like. So as you can see, you now have an option to directly purchase certain items instead of just purely wishing upon an RNG star. That is great, and as you can see down below, there are 3 featured weapons, and we can take a closer look at them here. Firstly, we have a Haka hand cannon. After that, we have a Viced scout rifle, and then lastly, we have a Suros shotgun. And these are likely listed in order of kinetic, then energy, and then of course, power weapon. But in addition to that, we also have these rewards as well. There's an Iron Banner Sparrow, an Iron Banner Ghost, and a new Iron Banner emblem that will track your Iron Banner level ups, essentially, throughout your Destiny 2 lifetime. Now, there's actually also an Iron Banner ship that they aren't showing. They say you just have to discover it for yourself. So that is kind of cool. Now, Bungie also says here, there are no limits on how many engrams you can acquire or how many tokens you can earn, obviously addressing the debacle that was Faction Rally 2018, so that's good to hear. Now, moving on from there, we have the addition of Masterwork Armor. It is also coming on the 30th, and here's what it does. Each piece of Masterwork Armor grants 3% damage resistance while using a super. Now, it doesn't sound like much, and it frankly isn't that much, but remember, they do stack together, so you can go all the way up to 15% damage reduction. Now, taking 15% less damage while in your super is actually a reasonable bonus. You are absolutely going to notice an increase in survivability if you have 15% damage reduction while in your super during PvP or PvE. It will definitely make the difference between whether you survive or die. But is this significant enough of a bonus is the real question. Compared to weapons, I don't really know, because weapons are a huge bonus, producing an orb on a multi-kill that has drastically changed the landscape, especially of PvE. Now, this definitely doesn't look as insane, but Bungie did admit that this is the first iteration of Masterwork Armor, and they're looking for feedback and likely going to add more bonuses down the line, so that is good to hear. In addition to providing the damage reduction bonus, Masterwork Armor can also be re-rolled into the heavy, light, or restorative stat packages. So if you have some sweet looking Iron Banner armor, but they're light armor, and like everyone else, you don't really care too much about mobility, you can re-roll them into heavy or restorative armor. That is definitely a great addition, because so far, if it doesn't have the right stat package, it's just thrown away, it's pretty useless. Now, I should mention, because Bungie mentions this, if you're trying to do this the first day it comes out, there's a little bit of a UI glitch where if you re-roll something and try to re-roll it right away again, it's not going to work. The bar is going to fill up, but nothing is going to happen, and it's not going to use up your resources, so you're just going to have to wait a second and do it again. Alright, now moving on from there, Bungie also talked about how they're pretty drastically changing raid rewards. So, Raid Armor is now actually worth getting because it has raid exclusive mods. Every time you get Raid Armor from now on, and the existing Raid Armor you already have will be backend updated to have these exclusive raid mods. And here's a look at one of them. So this one, Emperor's Blaze, gives a 25% damage increase to solar abilities. That is really good. Like, that is substantial. I'm thinking for the damage phase on Callus, being able to shoot your golden gun or celestial golden gun doing 25% more damage, that is actually absurd. Like, that is a really substantial damage bonus, and this will absolutely change the landscape for speedrunning for sure, and just how people play these activities. Now, an issue here that I do want to mention, and we'll talk about this more at the end of the video, but if it's updating all of the armor you already have, a lot of people, I know a lot of you guys watching, are sitting there with full or near full raid armor. So as soon as this update comes out to make the raid more replayable, you're already done because you already have all the armor. Why would you go back in the raid? Yes, it's going to be easier, but there's nothing more to earn. So I'm not sure about that addition, but it is certainly a positive addition, and this is something that really needs to be looked at for everything. There should be Trials exclusive mods, Raid exclusive mods, Strike exclusive mods. Just go crazy with these exclusive mods. They seem to be pretty sweet bonuses. And speaking of these bonuses, Bungie said that they wanted them to be more broad and not focus on singular mechanics. So some of the things that they gave as examples of bonuses for these raid mods are recharge your grenade when you activate your super and deal 20% extra damage after getting a melee kill. That again seems really powerful, so I'm very interested to see what these mods actually do in game. Now, in addition to these new mods, there's also several other bonuses. Firstly, there is now double drops. Clearing the prestige raid after this update will also give you the normal drops at the same time. In addition to that, every raid encounter will always drop a raid piece. Whether it be armor or a weapon, you're always going to get something when you beat a raid encounter. So raids are a lot more rewarding now after the 30th, especially for any new players or players who haven't been able to do the raid. This is definitely your time to get in there. In addition to that, Benedict, the raid vendor, will sell a rotating selection of raid gear. So if you're just missing the scout rifle and you can't get the scout rifle, then you just wait for Benedict to potentially sell it, and then you can buy it directly from him for Callus tokens. But you do need to have beaten the raid once that week. So you go in the raid, you beat it, and if you still haven't gotten certain gear, you can pick it up from the vendor. Now, another addition that I forgot to mention before, but every raid encounter now has the chance to drop exotics, and not exotic engrams, actually exotics, so you can equip them and use them right away. So again, raids a lot more rewarding. Speaking of rewards, Bungie is also adding this new ghost shell, which is called the Contenders Shell, into the loot pool, and you can get this for doing the final encounter of the Leviathan or of the Eater of Worlds Raid Lair. Now, what does this ghost shell actually do? Well, it has two perks specifically that are only active in Leviathan, so that's again while you're doing the Leviathan or the Raid Lair. The first perk is Seeker of Brilliance. This enables the chance for encounters to drop bright engrams from their loot pool, so that's actually pretty interesting. And then you have Seeker of Opulence, which means that exotics you're getting as rewards have a 50% chance to pull from a list of exotics you haven't already collected. So it just makes it more likely that you're going to get that missing exotic that you still haven't received. And lastly, the Ghost has Seeker of Glory, which provides a tracker for the number of encounters you have defeated in the Leviathan. Actually a pretty sweet reward. So those are the big updates coming on the 30th. Iron Banner, the introduction of Masterwork Armor, and the changes to raid rewards. But there are some more things happening because there's also going to be a patch. Now I'm going to not go over absolutely everything, just the highlights Firstly, the Prometheus Lens exotic has been buffed. They're going to increase the base damage, and the perk Flame Refraction now generates ammo instead of pulling from reserves. So that gun is a lot better now. It was overpowered, then it was over-nerfed, and now it's finally, hopefully, going to find a happy medium. In addition to that, heroic strike completions now have a greater chance to reward exotic engrams. Also, Mercury challenges are now available during adventures. And Bungie also talked about shaders. Now, the shader debacle right now is that you can't dismantle a stack of shaders. So if you have 100 shaders of a shader you just do not care about, you will have to delete literally 100 shaders. Obviously, players are not happy about this, but Bungie was actually a little bit transparent into going in why that is. Essentially, the shaders are treated as individual rewards, so they do run into some problems when you dismantle 100 items worth of materials for dismantling, again, 100 singular items. So they said they could easily add a mass delete button, but you would run into problems if you had a bunch of extra glimmer, for example, you were rewarded and you were near the cap. But also, more interestingly, the reason Bungie is kind of delaying this issue is because they're looking at alternative ways to fix it. Firstly, they're looking to introduce a storage system for shaders. They specifically say we're looking at reintroducing shader collections. That would be a great addition. That would solve why people want to delete their shaders, because they have literally too many. Also, they actually interestingly say, we know you miss D1 armor shaders mechanics, aka there wasn't individual shaders, you had one and you could apply it as many times as you want. And they say looking at ways to reintegrate that capability without losing the ability to shade weapons, ghost ships, sparrows, or customize specific pieces of armor. That is cool. So they're potentially gonna ditch this entire system of having individual shaders as rewards and just go back to the D1 system where you get a certain type of shader and you have that shader forever and you can use it as much or as little as you want. I really, really hope they do that, because the fact that they're even saying this, Bungie, yes, please reintroduce the D1 shader system. It was much more intuitive, it made so much more sense, and well, hopefully you also do a twofold introduction of the shader collection as well, because if those two things are added, the customization and the shader system is going to be a lot better in Destiny 2. And so there we have it. Actually, a lot of additions in this weekly update. They touched on quite a few things, and quite a few things I am happy about. Masterwork Armor, while the bonus I think could use a little bit of work, it is a noticeable bonus when you get all 5, and importantly, you can re-roll it, and I think that is a big thing, but even more importantly, it's going to give you a reason to actually look at armor again. Right now, armor is just so completely pointless. I think Masterwork is just touching the tip of the iceberg for what needs to be essentially a complete rework of the armor system, but at least now when you get armor, you're going to be somewhat interested in it, and when you get Masterwork Armor, it is going to be something that you're going to put on your build likely. Now, also, the raid stuff, great. Like, introducing these pretty substantial bonuses. I was really surprised to read what I read with the raid exclusive mods. That's great, and something I want to note here is that hopefully that's a preview of Mods 2.0, right? Like, Bungie is in the background currently building the Mods 2.0 system, and they've said a bunch of times that the mods in this new mod system are going to be much more substantial and offer a much greater bonus. So if they're doing that in the background, this again is likely a preview of the type of mods we'll see in the Mod 2.0 system, and that is good news, because these bonuses are insane and they're really going to change how you play and hopefully let you actually customize a build around a character. Having a bunch of solar mods and then solar grenade recharge, you can actually maybe get a build out of that rather than just having a random collection of stuff. And of course, Iron Banner looks decent. I'm happy they're adding 3 rewards and not just 1 pistol like Faction Rally, but in all of this, there is one potential negative, and that negative is that they are really making the game more rewarding. And that sounds like it would be good, but when Destiny 2's biggest problem, arguably, is a lack of endgame content, giving out so much loot and making exotics even easier to get, and they're already ridiculously easy, but making them even easier, is that the right direction to go in? Well, at this point, it might just be too late. I'm sure a lot of us here already have a ton of exotics that we've gotten from just doing public events, right? Pretty easy content. So dialing back on the rewards would only screw over new players, and I'm very aware of that, so it makes sense that Bungie isn't doing something like that. But I don't know about you, but I really wouldn't mind seeing some more elusive rewards. Rewards similar to the Black Spindle and the Outbreak Prime in Destiny 1, where not everyone had them, and you actually had to be a good player to get a good reward. Imagine that, right? What a crazy concept. But that's something that Bungie needs to be going in the direction of. Not for everything, but for a few things. Another problem with this generosity is that the loot pools aren't that big. Seriously think about the raid and think about how many rewards you get for doing just one raid. They're pretty substantial, especially now that you're guaranteed a drop for every encounter. Now again, I don't hate that idea at all, but I mean, there isn't even a full collection of weapons available in the Leviathan. Two of them, the shotgun and the grenade launcher, are available in the other raid layer, the Eater of Worlds. And then the other two, like the fusion rifle and the sidearm that aren't here yet, those are just gonna be in the next raid layer. So it's not that big of a loot pool to draw from. Each raid layer, in my opinion, should have an entirely new set of weapons. It's not just two from the original loot pool that should have been the original loot pool. And because there's such limited loot to actually get, the loot pool is so small, in only a couple of run-throughs of the raid, especially if you're pairing that with the tokens, you're buying stuff from Benedict, and you're also just getting free weapons from Hawthorne, you're gonna get all of the raid loot in just a few runs. And while that may seem sweet to any of you out there typing a comment right now about how you can play 1 hour every Wednesday and that's it, and yes, that is accessible for new players and that is a benefit that we shouldn't overlook, it doesn't help in terms of replayability. Destiny 1's raids were extremely replayable because you had to play 5 times just to get the Fatebringer. Now, while I don't think that's the solution, I think there's a happy median in between, where we actually have big enough loot pools in Destiny 2 that we can play the raid a few times before getting everything. And Bungie seriously needs to reconsider their plan to just add the 2 missing weapons into the next DLC's raid lair and think about adding an entirely new pool of weapons, because that's what this game needs: diversity. If you're going to have a static weapon system, you need to have a lot of weapons to compensate for that. Compensate for the fact that you're not having random perk rolls, which massively increases variety. You have to create your own variety by creating more and more and more weapons. Bungie decided to go with a static roll system, so if this takes a lot of work, too bad. They made this choice, and if they're sticking with it, they need to do it right, which means add a ton of new content. In any event, those are my thoughts on the matter. I think a lot of these changes are good, and I'm certainly happy to see Bungie improving the game. Are these things going to completely fix the game? Absolutely not. Like, if you're someone who's disenfranchised with the game, I'm not trying to convince you to start playing again. I'm not trying to convince you that the game is fixed. I'm just reporting the changes, and of course, I'm happy that things are getting fixed rather than, of course, not getting fixed at all. But more is going to need to be done. Thankfully, more is being done in terms of other updates down the line, but I'm not sure that things can really progress until we get a substantial rework. And the first real rework we're getting is with the mods 2.0 system. If Bungie can nail that, we can actually have some content and some longevity moving forward. If they don't, they need to look at something drastic, like, again, reintroducing the random perk system on armor and weapons or what have you. But it's going to be an interesting time. Let's see what Bungie can do. Guys, that's it for the video. I hope you enjoyed and found this informative. Now, if you did, please remember to help me out by simply rating and especially sharing this video. If you guys want to see more Destiny 2 content similar to this, don't be afraid to slap that subscribe button. And if you guys want to get in touch with me and keep up to date with the latest channel activity, the best way is to follow me on Twitter at RickCacus. That's linked in the description down below, as is my Twitch channel, which you can also follow. Again, I hope you enjoyed the video, and as always, have a good day.